Before setting up any put credit spread, you need to know if the stock has technical strength. Normally, what does that mean? It means opening the chart, checking the moving averages, momentum, volume, and so on. With Vision Strange, we have this view where we can see which stocks have technical strength, which ones are transitioning, and which ones are in a downtrend. This helps us a lot when we need to filter as we create our screeners for put credit spread. Let's remember a bit what these ratings we see here mean, which go from 0 up to 10. Okay? In Vision Strange, and then we'll move on to create our put credit spread with the screener to find the necessary liquidity. Okay, here we're going to see an important point, right? In Vision Strange, we rate stocks from 1 up to 10, right? And we rate them in 3 stages. The uptrend stage, the transitioning stage, and the weakened stage, right? The ones that are weak. So by rating those, the ones we will see in the uptrend stage will have a rating between 8 and 10. And how do you get that rating? It's very easy, and I'm going to remind you here. Each one of these parameters that you can see, we are listing them, and when the stock meets it, it gets 1 point. So when a stock like the one we see here has 10 points, it means it meets all these parameters, right? And so on. If a stock has 9 points, well, it means that maybe it doesn't meet one of these parameters. So in that way, we can filter the stocks where we want to find a put credit spread through the stage that we call uptrend. Now let's build our put credit spread, and we can build it in many ways. But the most important thing is to use Vision Strange and tell it that all the stocks or assets we want in this screener must have the characteristic of being an uptrend. Now that we have selected Uptrend in Vision Strange, we are going to choose certain parameters we are looking for in the put credit spread. Let's start with one of the parameters we always use the most, which is that the contracts shown by the screener expire before earnings. Next, we will set the number of expiration days we want, so it finds us a range. In this case, I set it from 30 to 45 days. Then for the spread width, I set it to 5 points. This means it will only look for combinations in the put credit spread that have 5 points or $5 of distance between the sale and the purchase of the put. Now, one of the most important parts is to select the characteristics of which delta we need the system to look for to sell this put credit spread. In this case, I will select delta, and I can choose a certain spread or have it search, let's say, almost at the money or slightly out of the money. As you can see here, I selected for the put sale to be between delta 0.40 at a delta of 0.50. This is at the money or slightly out of the money. Now, the next part, which is very important, is the bid-ask spread. This is the difference between buying and selling, specifically the selling of the put. It is very important that we always filter for a low differential, a low spread, so that way we can find contracts with liquidity, and by combining the buying and selling of the put, we can negotiate much better prices. In this case, I'm going to set that I want a maximum spread of 30%. Okay, now let's go with the buy leg. So in this case, it will not be necessary to set a delta. Why is it not necessary to set a delta? Because we are already giving the maximum width that we require for the spread here. So it is not necessary to set a delta, so we do not limit the system too much. So what will be necessary and important is also to set the maximum width of the spread. Well, I am going to set it the same at 30. Okay, in this case, we already have everything set up, and now we are going to look for which were the options it is giving us. Now, as we can see here, it gives us 170 different results for 20 different tickers. That means that there are tickers that give several results. Like in this case, we can see here, PL that Something important we can do here is filter, so it only shows us one ticker per result, and then we could define. How do we do that? If we go here to max ticker, I am going to set it to only one. Already selected, now we have only 20 results, which are 20 different tickers, and we are going to analyze them one by one to see how we read them and what we can change. In this case, we are already making sure, as you can see, that all the stocks it is showing us, the tickers, are classified as uptrend in Vision Strange. Now we are going to read a very important part, which is the reading about the prices we can get. In this case, it shows us the ticker, which is from the selection here, the strikes, the sell delta, which is 0.49, the probability that it ends up out of the money, and it shows us the values at which we can trade them. Here it is very important to understand, since we are selecting contracts that have a relatively low bid-ask spread, we are told in the worst-case scenario you could trade it at 1.34. In the scenario where you can trade it at the mid-price, which is usually what we look for with put credit spreads, you can negotiate to get paid 1.90. This means that the difference in the return you get is very large, depending on the price at which you trade it. And we realize when we trade it at the bid, which would be the worst price, which we should never do, it would not be good to trade put credit spreads at the bid, because that means getting as little as possible. We would get a 50% return. If we trade it at the mid, we get a 90% return, right? And here it will also tell us what the maximum risk is depending on which of the two prices we are trading at. Okay, as you can see this way, when I click on the cursor keys to go down, on the assets that appeared, I can see on the right side the chart where it recommends where to set the strikes. And I can clearly see the entire setup of the stock, right? As we can see here in Target, if you notice, the price is above the moving averages. Here we can clearly see where it is. The put sell, the put buy, and where our break-even would be. We can zoom in on the chart to see in more detail exactly how the position is marked. I can do a review directly without leaving the vision strength screen to see how it is. I could also check, or I can check, vision rotation to see how the sector it belongs to is doing. In this case, Target. And well, I can also check in this same box all the fundamental parts, right? Just like if I click the button I find here called Explore, I can look deeper into Target and its competitors. Let's check it this way. And here, as you can see, Target opens again at the bottom. We can now also see the vision rotation where it is located, the sector of Target, the industry, and the stocks with which. And I can also review the same stocks with which it shares an industry. If you notice here, we see Target, Costco, and in this case, I can see the rotation classification and the strength classification. So it's really easy to observe the trend, both from the asset itself, from the stock itself, or also based on the industry or the sector. Now we're going to make a small change in our profiles. Many times put credit spreads also, there's a strong preference to sell them out of the money, right? So what would we do to simply change this parameter? It's to come here, and we modify it to set it out of the money, and an example would be delta 0.20 to delta 0.30. This will only give us options that are out of the money, out the money. So let's look at the filter now. And as you can see in this case, we're selecting MRVL here. In this case, these are already out of the money contracts. We're selling a delta 0.30. Strike 80.75. The stock is trading at 87. This is the put strike and this is the call strike. The return we could get, or the credit, is between 1.14 at the worst price and 1.40 at the mid. Those would be the returns for each of these. And that would be the maximum risk. It's very easy for us to see our option directly, right? Now, since you have your filter saved, the easiest thing is to save it. You just need to click the button that's here on the right This screen will open up for you. You can save it in the following way, however you want. Here you can add a general description about the spread you're saving, and then you click Save.